Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Gassinelli and I have a lot of news for you, but don't worry, because we also share our predictions of what we might see in the smart home this year. But we talk about what's happening over at Google after Google I/O. We talk a little bit about Fuchsia OS, which is Google's long-promised operating system, plus some updates to the Google Assistant, which are absolutely awesome, some changes with HomeKit and updates there, and we talk a little bit about the Apple Watch, including me sharing some thoughts on one of the new bands the company announced. It's all that plus so much more coming up on Smart Tech Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and, well, the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent.
And I am your other host, Matthew Cassinelli. Hello, Micah. How are you doing this fine Thursday?
I am doing all right on this fine Thursday. Mighty fine Thursday. Can you believe May is almost over?
I cannot. I refuse to believe it, actually.
I thought it was just May 1st, and now it's May 27th. And it's a little perplexing, honestly.
I feel like the 5 weeks around, like from the first vaccine to the second one to waiting after that was just like a waiting period. And I don't know. It does feel like I skipped ahead all the way to now. And it's just weird that it's going to be summer. But
are you officially cooked?
Yeah, fully baked.
Same. Fully baked. You and I both.
Fully baked, brother.
Yeah. Fully baked.
Wow. But yeah, so I'm good to go. I'm going to see my family next week, so Rosemary will be in for me. But I'm super excited. And then once I get back, we're doing a full quarantine before we go to see them, just in case I don't know, they don't have the whole kid thing figured out yet, which is kind of frustrating. Right. But then after that, it'll be WWDC, and I feel like it'll be a whole new year for me, really. I kind of do go off of the Apple beta cycle year, so I'm excited. Yeah, it'll be good.
Me too. I'm looking forward to seeing what they end up announcing.
I was going to say, let's hang out or something once we're vaccinated.
Yeah, that
we could
too.
Do this in person, maybe at some point.
Go places, see people, do this show in person at some point. Yeah, all of those things. I think my first return to the studio is going to be WWDC. So Leo and I will be hosting that event. And we'll both be there in person, and it's going to be so strange.
That's exciting, though.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And then at some point, make some time to go see my family as well. So, yeah. Let us kick things off, though, talking first about Google. There's a story in Wired about Prabhakar Raghavan, and I apologize for mispronouncing that name if that's the case. But this, as the article says, he isn't the CEO of Google. He just runs the place, kind of taking the top spot. And in fact, during the interview, kind of recoiled at the idea of being the CEO of the company. He is in charge of search, ads, commerce, maps, payments, and the Google Assistant, which, of course, is most of the money that comes into Google. And so, yeah, despite being, not being the CEO of Alphabet, which is Google's parent company that we all forget, he is indeed the kind of running the place underneath Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think this is an interesting angle for this article, just because I haven't stayed as in touch with Google's senior management as I used to be when I was, younger and more into general tech, as opposed to probably more Apple specific in the last couple of years. But I think he's currently senior vice president. But basically, it's like he's running most of the place underneath Sundar. And so I thought this was a really good, just an interesting article to check in and see, especially post Google I/O with everything that they announced. It's like understand who's running the team and things like that. and they have like a good article that just goes into some of the depths about some of their like relationship going back in the past. And then the other part was where did it go? Like some of the just like third party issues that they've been having with lawmakers and things like that. So it's interesting to see Google's angle from the management itself there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a quick one. Just to touch on that.
Yeah,
but
check out the article.
Really in-depth piece that you should totally check out. We are not going to recount the whole thing for you. That will be for you to enjoy. Now let's talk about Google Assistant and its AI stuff, where in the event, one would be led to believe that that Google was working on kind of redoing search and redoing AI, redoing everything so that you could have a conversation. They showed talking to a planet, for example, and with the information that the planet or that the AI model had, it could pretend to be that planet and respond as that planet. And that is not necessarily the way that things are going. And in fact, most of the stuff that was shown off at Google I/O was sort of long-term ideas and big ideas and not really specific in particular changes and updates coming to Google until we got to kind of Android and that system. So as the Verge article points out, Google isn't ready to turn search into a conversation. Search is still best done by us typing text into a Google search field and then looking something up.
Yeah, this is it's a different type of longer take, but it's kind of examining whether or not this should be done also. Like, I thought that was what was funny is even just during the demo, I was like, why are we talking to Pluto right now? Like, it's kind of just lost me because I was like, this is interesting, but it still seems like it's the very basics. And even going back to the other article from Wired about this senior vice president, as he was talking about how just working at Google, some of these problems are like, it went way beyond from when he even started learning about technology. And I mean, I don't know specifically when he was born, but it was pre-90s. And then when it advanced to the web, and just how the problems that these are trying to solve are something that even with all of the money in the world, which you could say generally Google does have, like you still couldn't actually solve this problem. And so I think it's an interesting part, especially with the speech and having computer to computer interaction like that is something that they can't possibly solve. Ultimately, it's never going to be good enough, but I think doing it does have a lot of benefits along the side. So this is another good article to check out and sort of see. I mean, The Verge does tend to have a slightly more negative take on some of the stuff like this, like don't even try or something. It kind of implies that, but I think it's worth reading. They've got a lot of just some of the issues that happen too, that where like, it's like, I mean, the term, I think we talked about this at one point, but GPT-3, which is a whole natural language processing thing. It's like those kids end up saying like, oh, your foot has two eyes, even though it can do other really advanced stuff. Sometimes it just falls down in the most basic ways. So I think this is another interesting thing to just be just in light of what Google was actually working on at Google I/O.
Yep. And then there's Google's Wear OS system. We talked a little bit about that last week. Google is partnering with Samsung and Samsung's own Tizen wearable operating system, and they're kind of calling it Wear. It seems to be the name of the platform. And the idea here is that Google's own system and Samsung's own system can sort of work together to get apps from the Google Play Store. And the conversation or the analysis rather, The Verge put up is that it's almost as if Google is once again saying, you know what, we're not really getting this whole wearable operating system thing. And so what can we do now to sort of breathe new life into things? Well, maybe we can just sort of partner up with Samsung Tizen and just sort of have things available to everybody that way. So I find this fascinating given that given the Fitbit acquisition. To me, that would have, in my mind, would have breathed new life into the system and would have allowed for Google to make a robust platform, a robust wearable operating system for all of these devices. So it was a little shocking to me that it didn't end up that way.
I mean, Fitbit is known for the health part, though, not as much a mobile operating system for the watch, where I think it's kind of, they are like borrowing those health features and the network and everything, but I don't think Fitbit, even just like as an engineering expertise, would necessarily provide as much as somebody like Google would, in theory, already have. I think this was a good, just like, I don't know, douse of cold water, basically, on like the part where it's like, oh, now Google's like finally recommitted to Wear OS. And it is like, yeah, actually, this is just kind of doing what they can at this point. And his conclusion is sort of like, Google hasn't proven that they'll do any better this time around. It's like, this is a step in the right direction, but you need like multiple pins to knock down. I'm mixing way too many metaphors, but you need a trend, not just like one data point. And so I think that's worth considering. It's like, we'll see what they do from here and see if it actually is revived and what they do with the hardware and everything. But I think it seems better, at least. I don't know. Whenever I hear myself say that, I'm like, I could imagine myself saying that like 3 years ago or 3 years before that. And like, my friend who used to have an Android watch and I had the Apple Watch, and he was always like talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see though, I guess. So far the Apple Watch has proven a little bit better. Which actually, I think I deleted one of the lines, but it's like Apple Watch has like 1/3 of smartwatch market or something like that. I can find it again. But yeah, interesting takes. Also again from The Verge. So they've got opinions this week.
I'm sorry.
The last one.
Yeah, that's
just.
I want to make sure you get that.
I thought this was an interesting follow-up to that too. Just from 9 to 5 Google, they did a survey of how many of their readers said they'd buy a Wear OS watch, and it actually, like 60% of them already own one. Which I will say that we can always reveal our Apple bias a little bit here. But then 20% said that they would, 15% said they're waiting to see what happens. So it's got an interesting breakdown of just direct from people who are most like 9 to 5 Google readers are going to be the people who are most likely to buy that kind of thing. So good little data experiment there.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about something. This is old news, but new news, because a lot of folks might not even know this is going on. So a while back, Google announced an operating system that it was going to be developing called Fuchsia. And Fuchsia was a new sort of runtime that different devices could take advantage of. And some of the first devices that it was going to be used with were the Nest devices. And what you might not know is that if you've got, I believe it's the first generation Google Nest Hub, then you may end up having an update that runs Fuchsia on your system. And so here's what's important to know is that up to this point, the system that was running on the Nest Hub and other Nest devices was called Cast OS, and it was a Linux-based operating system. And Fuchsia is Google's own system as opposed to being Linux-based. And you, likely won't notice any difference when it comes to using your devices, because that's kind of how Google intended for it to be made and done, is so that you wouldn't notice a difference. So the first generation Google Nest Hub is running Fuchsia 1.0. As it just received approval from the Bluetooth group to allow for it to be running on the system. And now many folks are getting this. But as far as impact, you shouldn't really see one. I imagine we're going to see more and more of Google's own devices running Fuchsia OS as they slowly phase out the Linux-based Cast OS that they've used for a while. So that was just kind of a holdover while they worked on Fuchsia OS, and it's really cool to see it out in the wild.
Yeah, I thought this, I mean, you pretty much summarized all of it. I know I am just like interested because it could be running underneath everything in the future. And they do use the Nest Hub as a mechanism to try out features, which I think is it does make sense just because it's got the display and always powered situation going on. But I thought this was cool. It's just like, they're developing it basically for their own uses, and it's going to be mostly based off of some of their languages. But I think that's still, like, in theory, with users, you never have to just notice that this kind of thing is happening, but it will just be a better experience on their end. So cool.
Yeah. I'm curious to see as it comes to Android and other platforms, if they end up doing that, Fuchsia takes over at Google. That'll be kind of cool. Google Assistant will soon be able to power off your Android device. So if you've always wanted to have that, hey, you know who, power down, well, that feature is soon going to be coming to your Android phones. So this is with Android 12, and with it, you can, it says, with Android 12, the Google Assistant gained the ability to be invoked by long pressing the power button, which normally opens Android's power menu. In turn, the Google Assistant is gaining the ability to power your phone off with your voice. So they did what many sort of tech writers do. They've got somebody who knows a thing or two about kind of decompiling all of the latest updates and things, and looking in to get hints. And they were able to find the ability to, it says, talk to Google with the power button. You can now press and hold the power button to access your Google Assistant. And to go to the power menu, press the power button and the volume up button, or open your Assistant and say, power off. That's nice if that's a thing that you want to do, I guess.
I think it's funny too, like almost the implication is that people couldn't figure out how to turn off their phone because of the power button being the way you have to hold it on. And I actually do get that there's a lot of times, especially like when I guess this is only when it's off, but I always remember that when I'd have to reset like my Mac and doing the weird key combinations, is it's like, you always need it when you can't figure it out, and it's like, I just want to turn it off. So I could see maybe like a use case if you had the phone running as like the smart home situation thing, and you just wanted to turn it off at the end of the day without going over and grabbing it too. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a funny one. Just a little feature. They're also, this is one thing that I think it needs to happen a lot more, is the what's on my screen feature that I think they used to have, but then maybe it never really got that much attention. But basically looking at the different things that are on your screen, maybe it's products or something like that, and asking, like, I guess you just say what's on my screen, but then it says like, oh, here's like the laptop, and you can get links to Google or YouTube directly too. I think I noticed that, especially with part of Google I/O, they were talking about just the ability to link shopping across the web more directly. Like, I'm interested as a YouTuber because a lot of YouTube videos do end up being about products. And if that's more directly tied into Google Assistant or even on people's smart displays and things like that, I think it can make a big difference. So I think seeing assistants get a lot more intelligent about what you're actually using on the device actively, I think is going to be a big shift this year. So
I don't know if I'm jazzed about the idea of my assistant watching things in the way that they are kind of putting it forth. It's because the thing is, I know that Siri is paying attention to my behavior and over time is saying, oh, every time you put in Bluetooth headphones, you are wanting to listen to the Audible app. So let me suggest that to you. And I like that feature, but I only like it because I don't think about it. And if there's something more forward in saying, yes, we're watching you, that's why this is getting better, that kind of makes me uncomfortable a little bit. And I don't know, it's probably just me being silly, but that's how I feel.
I think this might be more active, where it's like, as you trigger it, it will just be able to identify, kind of like how Pinterest or Google Lens does it for just photos, but in a deeper way that way. And also, I forgot to mention, this was originally Google Now on Tap was what they called it. And so it was very like Google search, finding all the things on the page, as opposed to Google Assistant, which can just kind of be like making connections between things. So who knows? I think seeing it in the more advanced mode would be, it just seems like a logical conclusion, even with, I'm trying to remember, what do they call the thing that scrapes the web and like will call places for you? It seems similar to that. So I wonder if there's overlap. Is that like Do Well for web or something? They have so many different names now. I'm
right. It's hard to know. Duplex, maybe. I can't remember which one it is. Google Duplex.
Yeah, exactly. It could be like based off that technology. So cool.
Yeah, I guess if I'm the one hitting the button saying, look at this or do this thing, that feels better versus, I don't know, it being judgy about what I'm doing. If it can make Pluto talk, then I do worry about it getting judgy of my behaviors. And it's just like, maybe don't keep launching this game that you play all the time and stop wasting your time doing this. Okay, Google Assistant, you're right.
And then the last Google Assistant thing, plus a little bit of, I love it when Google does shortcuts because it just makes me happy. But I guess now it's going to be easy in Gmail to save stuff straight to Google Photos, which is Gmail is very centralized now. And so that is just logical to be able to, somebody emails you a photo, you can save it straight into your Google Photos and see it on your Nest Hub or something like that. And also just, I guess another follow-up on this point is that we mentioned this before, but the free Google Photos part is going away June 1st. So that's only a couple of days. So it's going to continue against your Google storage from that point on, which I'm pretty sure I'm paying like $2 a month or something now, just because it's not free anymore. And I just barely ran out. But then the last one, which I'm surprised because I don't use the full features of Google Meet too much in depth. But they did add being able to start a Meet call in Gmail. And as I was playing around with the Gmail app, I realized that the individual settings that you can turn on do let you even set up Google Chat and Google Rooms, which I'm not sure if that's close to the new Google Docs thing too that's going to be integrated. But I was like, wow, Google Gmail itself really does do all of those things together. So I love seeing a shortcut from Google though, because it's you can't schedule stuff as these. I mean, they do actually do a good amount compared to even what Apple has done with their own apps. So that's always good to shame Apple a little bit for that and kick them in the butt and get them moving faster on their own shortcuts.
Let's go ahead and move on to talk about Roku, which is slowly but surely eking its way into a good place in the home. I've got a Roku television that supports both AirPlay and HomeKit. Has support for both of those, and there are some stories going around talking about Roku working on smart home stuff, which I think is really interesting. They hired the director of product management, who has worked at Amazon on TP-Link's Casa Smart Home stuff and Netgear's security arm, which is Arlo. People know about Arlo security cameras. And so to have that person join the team, as well as them continuing to exist as these TVs and set-top boxes and also speakers and sound bars you can start to see how they can have a pretty good place in the smart home ecosystem. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I thought this was definitely good lines. Like the job description for that guy is about their home technology product strategy. And just this article from Florence Ion mentions that it's like, especially with Matter coming up, it could be a pretty strategic time for them to jump in and sort of benefit from that compatibility thing, along with just the honestly like really strong brand that they have. This is one of those things where I never thought about it, but I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally see that making sense, that Roku has their own little smart home things. Especially, I mean, we've seen a huge proliferation of lower cost smart home stuff that isn't maybe like $50 and instead 30 or below. So maybe they'd fit into that market as well too. Yeah. And like, especially with Apple TV as a strategy of the home hub sort of thing, there could kind of go that similar route where it's like you buy something logically that connects to the TV is the central part of the home in many ways for most people's technology devices, at least. So building outwards from there is different than coming in through voice assistants, which maybe aren't as compelling if you're just looking for just something to watch on. So it's pretty cool. I think it makes sense. And seeing Roku as like a fourth major smart home ecosystem actually like seems pretty logical compared to, I don't know who else would do it. So cool. Go Roku, I guess.
Yes. Now let's talk about a longtime player in the space that I, to this day, don't trust, but a lot of people still enjoy. It's Sonos. And there's an article called What to Think About When You're Thinking About Buying a Sonos Speaker. What you think about is how they stopped supporting older Sonos speakers in the same way that they do modern ones, right? That's all there is to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think particularly with their integrations with other stuff, like they're saying, if you haven't started yet, get two Sonos and then get the Symfonisk from IKEA for $100 each. And like, that's actually a really good place to start. And then now too that they've got, I mean, they have everything from the home theater system to the little portable one, which do you have that, or is it Rosemary that has the,
Yeah, it's Rosemary.
Yeah, those look sweet. Like I was definitely eyeing that. I might consider that later this summer because our backyard setup is actually, it's at the right time of year where the sun actually hits it for a significant amount of the day. But yeah, this is just another really good in-depth guide about it. It's like, if you are wondering about Sonos, and especially how they've changed over the last few years, I think it's worth checking out.
All right, next is for folks who have obviously Ring devices, then they might want to check out Ring's smart plug for the outdoors. This is it's an inexpensive device in comparison to some of the other products that Ring offers. For about $30, you can get this smart plug that has two plugs built into it. And as we said, it is outdoors. It's made for the outdoors. So you will be able to have that connection outside without having to worry about. It's got IP66 rating, so you wouldn't have to worry so much about it getting wet. But this is particularly helpful if you've got Ring products, because if you don't, then the integrations seem to be kind of pretty Ring focused.
Yeah, and you need like the bridge and everything to really take advantage of it. So it's cheaper if you've already got that. I thought just a totally random line that I thought was hilarious was him describing the size of it. It's 4.5 by 3.1 by 2, roughly the same size as an individual box of cereal, which I like forgot existed. The little,
oh yeah, those little
like
boxes.
Travel ones that like I remember getting that as a kid when we would go on vacation. And it's a perfect description of the size of the thing. That's, I don't know, sorry. But yeah, it's all little. It's only $30 too standalone. So I think outdoor smart plugs are a super useful thing, especially if you're setting up like string lights or something like that in the backyard, just because then you can automate it all pretty easily. And yeah, water protection, because mine is completely
I always
destroyed.
think about you.
Yeah.
Always. Oh,
In theory, that one was waterproof too. It just It's maybe a little more user error than I'd like to admit. So,
over in Microsoft land, the Surface Duo, which is that two-screened device from Microsoft, has gotten an update that lets it have Xbox controls, which is kind of interesting. So you can play games on it. And so it turns part of the screen into actual controls to play different games. And so it says more than 50 games are available to play with touch for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscribers. About half of the total titles available on the service can be used with the touch controls. The rest will require a more traditional physical controller, which can be paired via Bluetooth or wired to an Android device like the Surface Duo. But yeah, you can basically turn half of your screen into controls for the game, and then the top of it, of course, serves as the monitor. And then the other change is that, of course, the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X both have the Apple TV app, and in those you can turn on Dolby Vision in the Apple TV app, so that if you are watching content that supports Dolby Vision, then the Xbox Series S and X will show that content in the Dolby Vision format, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought these were both like interesting points in the game console as a smart home entertainment ecosystem story that is sort of ongoing, and especially the Surface Duo Xbox controls too, I think are similar with the remote play thing that's kind of going on right now, where people are really trying to get either streaming games or just like straight from the cloud, or streaming it just from your home to other little devices and being able to play around the house too, I think is an interesting story. And just with the consoles, like the new Xbox Series, I'm just going to call it Xbox Series of consoles, all the Dolby Vision stuff is going to be even more clear now too, which is like, I mean, I guess literally clear, but that's just HDR. And I mean, is that, I guess Dolby Vision is the, I was thinking Dolby Atmos is the audio one, but
yes,
I've been
Dolby Atmos audio,
all
Dolby
that.
Vision video.
Yeah, I've been researching that all a little bit more just because the new iPad Pro has proper HDR support and everything. So it's all confusing terms, but it is, I think just in general, a lot of those consoles, and I think even just like gaming as a part of the home is entering the next generation now too. So I think this is just a cool little development there. I hope to see, I think like gaming consoles on smartphones is the thing that still hasn't really played out fully. Like you can do remote play on the iPhone, and Apple's kind of not allowing Game Pass in the way that Xbox wants, where it would all be through one app and instead separate app. There's like a whole trial going on sort of related to this right now. But I think we'll hopefully see that maybe settle down more by the end of the year, and just as consumers win being able to play anywhere in the house and get like the best visuals everywhere too. So good updates.
I do want to mention something that was crossed off the list, but I just think it's so exciting that we've got to touch on it. And that is a product called the Last Game Board. The Last Game Board is a game board that you can use to play different tabletop games. And the reason they call it the last game board is because it's meant to be a game board for like the last game board you ever need to play different games. So on the site itself, lastgameboard.com, it says, "This is no ordinary board game. It's a complete gaming system that lets you play with anyone, anywhere, and with any game piece. The beautifully crafted 16-inch by 16-inch square design gives you unlimited 3D touch, network play, and takes your game night into a whole new dimension." So with this, it's got hand movement detection, physical piece movement detection, whether it's on the board or above the board. And you can play all sorts of different things on it so that you can actually kind of interact and have a Dungeons and Dragons experience. its design, of course, lets you pinch to zoom. You can snap back out. If you're building out a campaign, then you just use that one space and then you just zoom in and zoom out with it. And then it has an attached app, companion app that you use with your phone. But it's not just for tabletop role-playing stuff. You can also use it for other types of board games. And yeah, I think this is really cool with Bluetooth 5 and Wi-Fi technology and 64 gigs of flash storage on the device so that you can get it set up. I think this is an interesting idea. So it's $699 to pre-order. And if you want to have the subscription to the tabletop gaming service, then it's 6 months of unlimited tabletop gaming for $40. So that's where things get a little interesting, is whenever we start talking about the sort of subscription services, what exactly that provides, if you're going to be able to use it without having to subscribe, or if it just becomes a, just a device that sits there. It's got microphones and speakers in it, so that even if you're not actually in the room with some of your players, they can hear you and you can hear them, which is really cool. Cool. Yeah. So you can imagine kind of maybe you've got 4 people in a room in one place and 2 people in a room in another place. You've got 2 of these. It all seems like you're playing on the same board together, which is a pretty nifty technology. And there are developer APIs and things like that to help, and a developer SDK to help folks create for the system. So really neat. I think that, this is a really cool technology. It does seem pretty pricey. But the article that brought this forth was one that you found over on TechCrunch, which is talking about how they've moved out of the crowdfunding stage and have moved into a $4 million seed round. And so they're kind of like on their way. They've been, funded for this first little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure I saw this at CES. I can't totally remember, but I definitely remember this type of concept. It was like pretty specifically buy the game board and that you don't have to buy it again so that you can play them digitally. So I feel like it was the pitch. It's just been a little bit has happened since I was at CES. So I don't exactly remember all those details, but I think even just, I don't know the parent company, but it's saying Asmodee Digital is the company that they do have support from, which has a lot of their adaptations of modern classics like Catan, which is the one that I care about, or Carcassonne and Scythe, Gloomhaven are other ones. So I think at least for me, being able to play Catan is like, this is a remote digital Catan board thing. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm good with that. But just having actual good games, not like some sort of janky just like custom game subscription service or something like that, I think is going to be important. Like getting support from actual tabletop games to make digital versions to be supported on this sounds really important, especially if they can create that ecosystem and the service over time too, that is worth it for them to get into. So it is still like seed funding round. So hopefully the product price will go down over time and just the market can expand and they can get enough users to scale like that. So cool to see. This is totally like, that's the smart home of the future, is you have your digital game board come up and be playing with everybody, even people who weren't there too. So got to get that Star Wars chess game.
Exactly. Yeah. I think this is a really cool idea.
It's a whole, I was going to say it's like a giant iPad, but then the website is like, don't call it a tablet. Because it does have like sensors on the top so that as you're moving your hands and stuff, it can track it. It's not just a touchscreen. So I think it seems super fancy. I'd love to try it out.
I'd love to try it out too. Yeah. I'm not planning on pre-ordering one anytime soon. But at some point I do want to kick off a D&D campaign
Totally.
as a dungeon master. And something like this is really neat to be able to do it in person and have sort of visuals and stuff like that is a pretty cool idea. So yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that, especially with how popular game board stuff or tabletop gaming is right now. Let's move on to talk about some HomeKit news. Up first, the NetAtmo weather station, for all of you weather nerds and weather bugs out there, has added some widgets to iOS 14 so that you can keep track of your own local weather using your own independent weather station. So yes, for you weather nerds, as I said, who have their own NetAtmo weather station, you can check this out. There's not a whole lot to say about this other than it's good they did finally add this feature, as I know folks were wanting to have a quick look on their home screen to see the widgets that told them the weather.
Yeah, this is good. And I will say, just so you know, strategically, I've seeded some of these articles because we're going to talk later about what we want to see next year, and I think HomeKit widgets is definitely one of them. So. That's
sweet.
And it's just a nice feature to have. You don't have one of these stations, do you?
I do not have. I have a NetAtmo room sensor, but I don't have their weather station. I think it's called the Healthy Home Coach is the device that I have. And it's basically just a fancy, air particle reader and temperature and all that kind of stuff. Nice. But yeah, no weather station. This was an exciting bit of news that I came across the other day. I was in my Eero app, which Eero is the router system that I use, the mesh routing system that I use. And up popped a notification saying your HomeKit home isn't set up. And back when I had my older Eero, not the new Wi-Fi 6 model, but the older one, it worked with Apple's HomeKit security features. And when I upgraded to the Eero with Wi-Fi 6, I had to get rid of that. And I was kind of bummed about it. And for the longest time, there was no ability to adjust those features using the Wi-Fi 6 model. And they just started to roll that out. So now my Eero Pro 6 or Eero 6 Pro, however that is, have Apple's HomeKit security again. So for folks who don't recall or don't know what that is, it is a technology that lets you sort of set a firewall against all of your smart home devices that are set up via HomeKit. And it tells the network to either block all requests with the wide area or only allow certain requests from the wide area, or allow all requests from the wide area network, meaning that you can create entirely local area network only devices that are walled off from the internet, or ones where a list of the manufacturer of the device gives Apple a list of places where they regularly pull information from, and then you can see that in the app. And so, for example, let me see, I'll go into the Home app, and I will look at my router because I just want to talk about one of them, for example. So I go into the Home app and I choose Wi-Fi networks and routers, and I choose Philips Lighting Bridge. And in here, I have the network security set to automatic, which means that it allows connections with an automatically updated list of manufacturer-approved internet services and local devices. Those include Google for a connectivity check and to make sure that the time is accurate, OpenWRT for another time accuracy, Philips itself for a connectivity check and firmware update, Signify for alternative home ecosystem, meaning if you don't use HomeKit, analytics, connectivity, diagnostics, manufacturer app remote access, so that if you want to control it while you're out of the home, and notifications. So all of that stuff, those are the places where it connects and why it connects to those different places. But you can just choose restrict to home. And by doing so, then it just is part of the local area HomeKit network. And you'll still be able to control them. You just won't get firmware updates and things like that. So a really good technology that I'm glad exists and I'm glad is available once again for my Eero devices. And I'd like to see more routers add this functionality for folks who have HomeKit setups.
Yeah, nice. I have it set to no restriction for LifeX and Belkin, and I don't remember if that
probably ran
was
into
a
some
benefit. Yeah, but
probably
it was
ran into some
absolutely
issues
because I
with
just have
connectivity.
tons of issues. Yeah, I couldn't get
Especially
the LifeX to
Belkin.
connect for so long. Yeah, the Wi-Fi, the Wemo ones, I'm pretty sure one or two of them still doesn't work. Yeah, so if you are having trouble, sometimes that can maybe do something. I'm not sure. Maybe that's one of those.
Yeah, no, I
just feel better about it afterwards.
It is one of the places where, yeah, sometimes you need to do that to fix it. But in theory, I'd love it if I could have them all set to no wide area connection. But I do want the Hue lights to get their updates and whatever other features I might want while I'm out of the home. So I have most of them set to automatic. That's the best middle ground because it's kind of like they tell Apple what sites they're going to ping. And then if they end up pinging sites outside of that list, then those will be blocked by the firewall. So it's a pretty good one to choose. But yeah, if you're having connectivity issues, then you might have to turn it off completely, which is annoying, but possible. And then last but not least is a 9to5Mac article saying what is in my heart and in my mind. Bradley Chambers writes, Eve Energy with Thread support is my go-to recommendation for smart outlets. Folks, as I've said, Thread is just fantastic. And so for Bradley Chambers to say, yeah, this great plug that works with Thread works quite well and does what I needed to do, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I've got the Eve outlet over there, and it is like if I test it on and off, it's like instant. You can't hear, I can hear it over here, but it's like the second I do it, it's on and off. So that is just what you've always wanted with the smart home, and now it actually does work. And this seems like a good way to get started. I saw on Twitter the other day. Yeah, exactly. Merlin Mann was struggling a lot because I think he was trying to get stuff to work via Thread on his Eero, and that doesn't actually work via HomeKit. And I was like, I could just tell it's one of those things where you see someone who's like tweeting about it finally after just like they're at their breaking point, being like, yes. Oh my God, why doesn't this work? And it's like, oh yeah, no, it doesn't work over HomeKit. Over Thread is different than normal Thread. And normal Thread. That's really not clear otherwise. So you could be like, why don't I have a Thread network working? And I think even at the time I misread his tweet as Eve versus Eero. And I was like, oh, it should be working. And it's like, it's all in the Eve app and everything. And it's like, nope, I'm talking about Eero. It's like, oh yeah, they're HomeKit, but it's not and Thread, but it's not Thread over HomeKit. So I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like that's, again, something that we'll probably see by the end of the year.
Yeah, I definitely we're getting there. I just wish it was a little bit sooner. All right, up next, we've got some stuff to talk about with the Apple Watch and then some product announcements. All right, Apple Watch. What is it about the new Pride Watch faces? Oh, the Pride Watch faces, not the Pride Watch bands. Okay, I'll just put this back down. Can I tell you something? And oh boy. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but I really don't think the woven band is very good looking. In fact, I find it rather garish and unattractive, and people seem to be drooling over it. And that's fine. I just am like, am I missing something? Because I've seen a lot of people whose taste I respect say, oh, it's beautiful. And I look at it, and I do not see beauty.
This is the newest one.
Yeah. So there are two new bands. I've got the one that I think is actually pretty because it's just. So this is the Nike Sport Loop band. There you go. 40 millimeter Pride Nike Sport Loop band. But then there's also the Pride Edition braided solo loop, and it's like 900 different colors. Which again, I understand why. The pattern looks weird. it doesn't quite make sense where the colors are overlapping. And so I look at it and I go, I don't understand what's going on here. It seems random, and that's what bothers me, I think. But people are like, oh, I see, it's so stunning. It's so gorgeous. It's so this. I just don't think it's very pretty.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is just like a little odd because it is, I don't know, it's not a traditional rainbow. It does have the addition of like the pride colors of the lighter, I don't even know how to describe them. And there's like brown in there too. So I think that blend might be sort
this
of what
is
you're
like
noticing.
the diversity version of the pride flag that includes
like
the trans flag and people of color. And so, yeah, they're roping in all of the colors. That part I get. It's just how they roped in the colors that doesn't, because when I look at that pride flag, I don't look at it and go, oh, that's hideous. But when I look at this band, I don't go, oh, that's hideous. I go, I don't get it. I'm looking at it all these different ways. And because here's the thing. It's that they call it, beautiful and stunning. If I looked at it and I said, oh, I get what's going on there, and people are like, oh, that's cool, that would be fine. But I'm hearing so many people say it's like stunning and beautiful. And that's the part where I'm going, am I missing something? Because I don't see stunning and or beautiful when I look at it.
It's very vibrant. It's like the most colorful one they've done by far. I think also in the press release photo, the band with the watch face is pretty intense. I think on like apple.com, looking at the bands stretched out by itself, it actually looks pretty normal to me. So maybe it's even
more
just
of a pattern,
like
especially if you squint.
Yeah, there's like a wave through it that's kind of spirals. So maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I think it's great. And the watch face too is cool. And they have like, it always kills me that they took away the interactivity of all of the Apple Watches, because you used to be able to scroll the digital crown and it would spin through the time ahead and back, and like it was supposed to show you what was different at that time of day.
Weather later that day,
yeah, and like they have a couple of those, but it looks like there's a little feature where it'll like pulse on the this one. That was the secret feature from this article. Here, right, actually.
The Easter egg.
My cat is in here.
Oh, interesting. So the circles sort of all join up.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, we're showing it on screen now, but it's like the band that they show on the screen is being woven together like the wristband is if you twisted it together and then made it into a wristband. So maybe that's
fun. It's a fun little fidget toy built into your watch as you drain the battery. Deezer somehow beat out Spotify. I thought Spotify had announced that it was doing offline listening.
2 days later. So
gotcha. Deezer got there first.
And even, the main thread, all three of these actually, Tidal also launched an Apple Watch app. I forgot
Tidal bought Square, or Square bought Tidal. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I feel like it's Jack Dorsey pulling his influence there. Tidal. I think he was related to the Tidal launch and stuff like that too.
This is all pretty good friends with B and J, so I could understand that.
The whole crew.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Spotify for Apple Watch has offline playback. Deezer has offline playback. Tidal has the same thing. Or is it? I think it's just regular. But theirs is also super high quality too. But yeah, so this is just interesting. I think it's fascinating just seeing any Apple Watch apps get updated at all. Like I have a couple more that we're not going to cover just because there's a ton of news today. But like, I'm just surprised. I don't know what resulted in all this new interest. Also, maybe sometimes they're just like getting it done before WatchOS. Is it 8 now? Is it? Probably going to be announced next week. So I'd love to see all of these apps just get a lot better. I feel like offline playback is actually a pretty killer feature because usually just the connectivity can be kind of slow. And so if the music is actually just on the watch, you know what? I just tricked myself I just came to a conclusion that I thought like 2 years ago, or maybe I think it was 2 years ago, I really thought the Apple Watch was going to go fully independent from the iPhone when they came out with the App Store. And then last year was just kind of like not as big of a deal, but this just made me imagine that like a standalone, truly standalone, you don't need an iPhone at all, Apple Watch could be coming, because now you have like 3 major music platforms supporting offline listening, which implies no access to the phone. So I have no idea if that's like tea leaves or something like that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, let's move on to something that I know makes you excited. Do you notice I'm speaking even faster? That is because I am speaking as quickly as Shortcuts works in the new version of iOS. Is that correct?
Supposedly. This is an interesting one, and I will always link to a Shortcuts related article that actually gets news, but I can't tell also if this is a situation where Shortcuts got worse over iOS 14 and then now they fixed it, but there was definitely just some weird issues where especially really large shortcuts would take a while, and specifically stuff that used the match text action, which is essentially using a regular expression to look for different like patterns in text and pull that data out, really started to go slow. Like it would take, I think somebody was building a shortcut in the Shortcuts user group that I run on Slack, that it would take my script that is written in Fountain, which is a plain text markup language for script writing that is like used for movie scripts and everything. And it would scrape out like the title and the action and the dialogue so that I can make a whole shot list. And this was a super fancy shortcut. It's like taking a screenplay and scraping the individual elements out and turning it into a spreadsheet. And it took like 45 seconds. And then now it takes like 8 seconds. And so it's, even though that doesn't seem like that long time, it's like, if it's just sitting there waiting and you're just kind of like, oh my God, what's going on? It's pretty bad. So this is cool. It's just like a lot of these, they have, I love the testing, like it's benchmarks, but we ran a shortcut with 380 actions. On the other one, it took 8 seconds, and the other one, it took 4 seconds. So even though seconds can seem like not that much, twice as fast makes a big difference. And I will say also, I was saying to someone on Twitter, I have a shortcut that I run repeatedly, that I run for about an hour and a half to log all of my shortcuts into my database, and it makes a bunch of API requests and stuff like that. And so if every single one of those things takes half as long, that actually saves me. Like I can do twice as much in a day. So very, very welcome. I hope to see stability throughout all of iOS 15. And I'm going to spend like the first week after WWDC just reporting bugs, because that's like the time when it can most likely get fixed. And I always hate, I don't get what Apple does. It seems like they always fix something. The next release doesn't have that fix. And then the release after that, they try to merge them and it usually breaks or something like that. And so it takes like 4 releases just to get a bug fixed. And we're on like iOS 14.7 beta, which is a pretty far into iOS. But I think they've had more and more issues that they need to keep putting new versions out. So lots to say that shortcuts are actually working as expected, which is lovely.
Yay. The new iPad Pro feature, which allows, it's essentially a very wide angle camera that is cropped down normally to a smaller portion of the view to take a normal photo and to do normal video. It's actually quite a bit bigger, and Apple has this thing called Center Stage, where the camera kind of moves around with you as you move around. And it's built into FaceTime, but third-party developers will be able to take advantage of it. And it turns out Zoom is already rolling out support for this feature. So you can use Zoom with Center Stage to have a chat and have the camera move around as you are communicating.
Yeah, this is pretty solid. And they've got like a even bigger expanded tile view. So if you have 48 people in your meeting, you can see all of them in the huge grid, which I could see. I will say it's like, that does just sound super cool. Like it does sound very futuristic. And I think the iPad as a Zoom display is an interesting product. This is specifically like Center Stage is designed for this kind of thing where you have your iPad on the side and then you can, sorry, I'm looking over here at my iPad. And then you could just do your calls and be able to see everybody and have your main computer in front of you or something like that too. I was super impressed with Center Stage. Like, I have a wide angle camera right here on my webcam for this show. And I was doing a video chat with fellow YouTuber Chris Lawley, who you should check out his channel and subscribe to because he's almost at 100,000. But just specifically sitting right here, I could go over and look at the sticky notes that are on my wall. And here, I'll just turn my camera is like all the way over here on the wall. And then I could walk across and point at something that's on my calendar over here on the wall, and all without moving the thing at all. Like, I just moved my monitor, but I was just walking back and forth in the room and was staying in screen and stuff like that. So it does seem very much like you could just have your iPad up on a mount and take all your video calls and things like that. And if you're the kind of person who wanders around the room and paces, or like is just, I don't know, describing something or showing something off, it could follow you around too. So I think it's like quite impressive. And just in terms of making it, before it was really close. And so it's kind of like, it was kind of dumb to try to do any of your video chats and stuff like that on the iPad. And I can't even remember, did it just this year also let you do picture in picture so you could close the main app? But it seems to have gotten a lot better. We were going to try it for the show, but I figure that might be a little impractical if we're trying to keep us side by side in the shot.
That's what we're going to do. Work. It just makes me think of walking down down a staircase in front of the screen.
Like, follow you as you go.
Yeah. There were some interviews about the Apple TV 4K, the new Apple TV 4K, quite a few interviews actually, and kind of talking about the Apple TV's value and place in the streaming marketplace. And then also, I think one of the coolest features that the new Apple TV allows, which is through a technology called HDMI eARC, which is, I believe, enhanced audio return channel, which essentially allows you. So for folks who have sound bars, they're probably familiar with HDMI ARC, HDMI audio return channel. Typically on your television, you'll have an HDMI port that is labeled HDMI ARC, and it lets you, using an HDMI cord, plug a sound bar into the television, and then no matter what HDMI port on the TV or the TV itself is being used, it sends the audio out through that sound bar or through the HDMI cord into the sound bar that you're using or the audio system that you're using. It doesn't have to just be a sound bar. And if that device itself also happens to be a video display of some sort, then it can also show on the TV just fine. But it also does the HDMI ARC. With HDMI eARC, that gets even better. It's a faster and more robust connection. And so using HDMI eARC, the new Apple TV 4K can let you use your HomePod (S) if you have more than one, as the speaker system for your television or whatever it happens to be. So in my case, if I got the new Apple TV 4K right now, the HomePod that I have in my living room, it sits to the right of if we're looking at it, it's to the left of the television, to the television's right. And it is the audio output for the stuff that's on the TV. Yes, it's mono. It doesn't bother me. And if I set up the new Apple TV 4K, I could hear all of the audio that comes out of the Apple TV through that HomePod. But also, if my partner turned on his Xbox and started playing, instead of the sound coming out of the television, it would use the Apple TV over the ARC port to play the audio from the Xbox out of the HomePods as well. So it's a pretty neat feature that basically makes a wireless sound bar or wireless sound system for you with your eARC thing. And I saw several gamers give this a try and said that there wasn't any noticeable delay with it. So very impressive stuff that this works.
I'm very interested because that's a very contentious point that you just said at the end there of not noticing any noticeable, like I saw some videos and I was like, if that is the amount of delay, it's probably not going to be enough for like super high end, not like super high end gaming, but first person shooters is the main category that I'm interested in for this. And it's still like, it's got to be instant, like real time. Otherwise it can make a difference. I recently broke my Xbox One somehow. I mean, actually, okay, not somehow. It's easier to say somehow than admit that it was plugged in my standing desk through my Stream Deck situation. And then there was something wrong with that. And so I plugged it in directly, which is a lot shorter of a HDMI length, I'll say. And then I raised my standing desk and that basically lifted the Xbox. And I think also might have messed up my monitor. I've had a couple issues, but that Xbox port no longer works. And I've been using the, and I don't even, is it Xbox One S, which is not the Series S and none of the new stuff. It's like the old one that's not quite, or it's not 4K and it's just a little bit slower. And I'm saying all this because I literally noticed that Xbox was slower than the other one that I had that was even faster. And like I was playing worse because of the delay. And so if that sound effect isn't like in real time, it just means that like you don't hear that thing until a second later and then you turn and they're already there or something like that. It's all very fast twitch gaming. So I didn't get this new Apple TV because I was mostly interested in the Siri remote, but this feature, if it really did work for Xbox games and like most, or like what I actually wanted to play with it, that would be pretty slick just to be able to have like two HomePods playing your whole video game effects would be extremely loud. But I think practically otherwise, it seems like a lot of Blu-ray type player. Like, I'm curious how many people plug in other stuff to their TV other than a streaming set-top box now. Like I was trying to figure out if this would work for, I plug analog audio into my receiver for like my vinyl player. And so if I could just have that go out straight into the HomePods would be pretty cool. Because otherwise I have to like change all these settings. And it could be like throughout the house, not just on the speakers connected to it. So it's pretty interesting. I had my finger over the buy button on the Apple TV, even though I already had the new Siri remote because I was considering getting it this week. But since I'm going out of town, I was like, I'm not going to bother.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let us move on to our project section this week. This week, we thought we would talk a little bit about what we expect from the smart home this year. I have some quick takes, and we'll see, Matthew, if you have some more specific stuff that you expect to see, and we'll go from there. Firstly, I think that Matter, P-Choip, is definitely going to be taking off. We're going to hear more about it this year as they are gearing up with the branding and getting companies kind of synced up with it. We've already heard Google talk about how the stuff that they have is going to work with Matter, and other companies are quickly sort of announcing, hey, Matter is what we're dealing with as well. And with that is going to come a whole host of new Thread-supported devices. There aren't a whole lot yet that are out there, but as I've seen with Thread over HomeKit over Thread, the robust and responsive network that's created in the smart home with Thread is truly incredible. And I think that it's just going to blow, like anybody who's had any experience in smart home, it's going to blow people's minds as they continue to add new Thread stuff to their home and just see how quickly everything responds and works together. So with that, I think we'll see companies figuring out how everything is going to work together, because that's the whole point of Matter. So there will be some confusion this year as companies, and into the coming year, as companies figure out how to interface between devices. Will it be that I can ask Siri to play something on an Echo if the Echo has Matter support? Will it be that all of my speakers can be synced together because they have these devices and have the support? Will my Echo be aware of all of the lighting in my home at the same time that, Siri is, at the same time that the Google Assistant is? And how long will that take? I'm not sure. But I think that those questions will be answered next year. I think what we're going to see first off is products. I think that that's going to be kind of the sort of backward compatibility stuff usually happens later because it's not as fun and flashy. So I think what we're going to see this year, my prediction is that we'll see some new products rolled out and some new bridges and things like that rolled out that aren't quite, oh yeah, by the way, you who has this thing that you've had for a long time, now we're supporting you. I think that's going to come later. So those are my big predictions for the smart home this year. It's all around Matter and Thread because that's where it's at. What about you, Matthew?
While you were saying that, I was thinking about especially the interoperability part. It does seem like the services on top of the assistants are going to matter just as much as what used to be like a hardware differentiator. It was just like you had to pick an ecosystem now. And I hope this will create more competition by everyone being on sort of a level playing ground, that the assistants will actually have to compete further for real features, because otherwise, what's the point of using Amazon's over Apple's if they all work with each other too? So I feel like that will be a super interesting thing. And like you said, the first big rollout of some of these products, I think you were saying in a different line, but also backwards compatibility is going to be an interesting thing where are people going to feel like here's a whole new set of smart home products that you have to buy to be able to participate, and otherwise you're stuck in this old system that you're just going to try to make last as long as possible, like the holdouts who just don't want to adopt the new thing, or don't want to, I would assume mostly don't want to rebuy every single light bulb or something like that. I hope there's not like a schism between what the old smart home was and people stuck with that versus all of the new stuff too. But I think even what we were saying about Roku and some of the low cost brands, I feel like, I'm not sure how much this has already happened because I didn't track the companies as early on. We've only been doing the show for almost 2 years now, but just a consolidation, seeing some of those low cost brands just get scooped up and branded as a Roku, I feel like could be a route that they go, or other companies like that. Something that we've talked about a lot are smart displays, because Amazon and Google seem to have been investing a lot into that smart home specific category. Like Apple's got an iPad, which is in many ways its own smart display on its own. But I think having some sort of smarter external home devices, like the iPad on the wall kind of situation, I feel like seems more timely. Like something like that would happen in the coming year. There's enough there, and with the HomePod proper going away, and I think a lot of the different variety with those devices, I think something's going to be due there. And then I think contextual awareness, I think, is going to be a big thing. I just did a video about the AirTags and U1 and how HomePod Mini has that, iPhone has that, a lot of other, that's just the Apple side too. But even what we were saying about Google Now on tap coming back into Google Assistant, I think just having smart assistants, not just home assistants, would be nice. It does feel like a lot of this isn't as smart. And so Google's deep into the conversational stuff, and maybe I can have a conversation with my light bulb about whether or not it's on. Sometimes I feel like I'm having those conversations unintentionally with Siri, when it's like, I couldn't detect any devices. But I think even specifically the home screen customization thing, it's kind of getting to smart homes as well. But I think all of these companies really do have a lot more centralized strategies than they did in the past. But I think there was an interesting article that like 9 to 5 Google did, that most people want profiles for work and life on their phones. Like, I think having more separation between those things is something that these devices aren't great at doing. And as many of us can tell in the last year, that can create a huge problem when your whole life is in the same spot or something like that. So having the technology serve us and not get in our way when we're just trying to like survive or something like that, I think would be a big benefit that seems like pretty easy. It seems like low-hanging fruit that will get more customization. And even Google's material design things, or like depending on which iMac color you have, your whole interface is themed with that color. Like, I feel like that personalized experience is going to, I feel like contextual sounds better, because I think companies have been saying personalized for years and it almost doesn't mean anything anymore. But doing the right thing at the right time does matter. And especially for smart home and assistants, it's all like, that's exactly what we're doing this for, is to have the right stuff going on at the right time. So I feel like by this time next year, hopefully we'll just be flowing in between our rooms with the lights turning on and the music following us and all that. The smart displays are saying, hello, welcome to your office, or like all the lights are changing and the tables flip, and now that you're in the same room again still. So I don't know. I'm getting too futuristic there, but I feel like that's sort of what's coming with Matter, especially just because it's connecting all those things on the low level and enabling just some of the like details to be ironed out, and then we can actually do the stuff that we want to get accomplished on top. So that's my prediction.
I dig it. Let's round up the show here with our last bit of the week, which of course are our picks of the week. Matthew Casanelli, tell me about your pick of the week.
This was a clever product that I saw from Quinn Nelson on Twitter, who's a YouTuber, and we've mentioned some of his good HomeKit videos or smart home videos in the past. I'm going to read the Amazon product name because these are always lovely, but Viney Deluxe 9-foot solar-powered LED market umbrella aluminum outdoor patio table umbrellas with 16 LED strips and hub light, aluminum frame, 3 years non-fading olefin canopy beige. So this is a outdoor canopy, like a patio table canopy that you can open up that has LED lights along each of the little lines inside of the canopy. So basically, as you open it up, you can have lighting down for your whole backyard just built into the overhead thing. So they have it looks like some of them, they're actually like almost sold out, but they're 7.5 foot and 9 foot sizes. It is like $200. I will say it's not cheap, but for what actual like home canopies are, it's actually not that expensive. So if you want sort of a patio light that's just built into what would otherwise be a protection from the sun, you can get one of these and just keep it up at all times. Pretty solid.
Yeah. That is a really cool light.
Yeah, it's just like I would never think to put LEDs on the inside of this. And it's just like, oh yeah, there you go. You don't need like another light right next to it. It's just built in.
I wanted to mention my new friend, Apple's new 2nd generation Siri remote, which is compatible with any Apple TV of 4th gen or later. Apple redesigned the Siri remote. It now is an all aluminum body. The little circular dealie has a clicky button in the middle and a circle around it that has kind of a directional pad. Wow, my camera just went all over the place. Up, down, left, and right. But it's also entirely trackable. The surface is trackable. And so you can use it like the trackpad of Apple TV remotes past, but you can also just use the directional clicking, which a lot of people complained about in the past. One thing of note is that it has a really interesting jog wheel feature where if you are watching a show, if you hit that circle button in the middle to pause the show, and then you rest your finger on the ring around the outside, then a little wheel pops up in the track bar at the bottom of whatever you're watching. and there's a dot on it that corresponds to where your finger is on this ring. And then if you move your finger forward, rotating forward, or move your finger backward, rotating backward, then like a jog wheel, it will take the track bar and move it forward or backward, depending on where you are in the show. So it's a very precise way of fast forwarding and rewinding as you need to, versus what we've had before, which is swipes that sometimes go too far back, or clicking to go 10 seconds back and ending up, going even farther back or forward than you intended to. It also has a power button on it, which is new to the Siri remote. And so tapping and holding on that will turn off the Apple TV and then any HDMI CEC connected devices. And then also tapping it or pressing it to turn on the Apple TV will turn on the other stuff as well. Still has volume controls. It has a back button and the Apple TV button still, which is technically the home button. But it also includes now, a mute button. And so that button will, as you might expect, mute the sound that is coming out of the television. And then they took the Siri button, the microphone button, and then put it on the side of the remote. So Siri is no longer front and center with the other buttons. It's on the side. And then the microphone is still there at the top, right in the middle of the remote for you to talk if you want to. But overall, it's a little bit heftier. It's a little bit thicker.
It's a lot
than
thicker.
the remote of years past. But the best part is the keys are the buttons are a different color than the rest of the remote, which is very important, folks. So yeah, I really like the new remote. And even if you don't get the new Apple TV, if you're even thinking about getting the remote, get the remote. You're going to like it. I think you're going to like it.
I got one
available
too,
for $59 on the app on Apple's store. Looks June 7th to June 14th delivery right now.
Not bad. Yeah. What do you think about? They put the mute button where the play button used to be, and I find that kind of annoying because, like, by reflex, I'm just grabbing it and pressing the bottom left one and just not actually pausing it. And then the other thing that happens to me is it must be my receiver, but unmute doesn't do anything. It even says audio mute off, but then there's just no sound. And so I have to like press volume up or not, or down to get it to actually do anything. Yeah, that's a little bit weird. Did you see Benjamin Mayo's tweet that it's like an iPad? It's like the original iPad, actually, the shape of the back, and even like the big IR port looks like the cellular thing on the iPad.
Oh, that's
so I thought
true.
It is like pretty pleasant to hold, and the back is pretty nicely machined, so it looks pretty good. Yeah, there's a comment I think that's like, man, those iPads are getting super skinny these days on the phone one. But it doesn't have motion controls, which is a little. They just kind of dropped that whole thing, it seems like. But yeah.
Yep. That's my pick. Alrighty, folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. If you have questions that you want answered, you can send those to stt@twit.tv. We'll have to start gathering some more questions from everybody again, so we can answer a bunch. Of course, we publish new episodes, or we record rather new episodes every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 1:30 p.m. Pacific. So you can tune in twit.tv/live. But of course, the best way to get the show is by subscribing. You do that by going to twit.tv/STT and subscribing to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, YouTube. You click on audio or video, depending on what you want, and you choose your subscription service of choice and hit subscribe, and we'll be there. Also, important to note, if you would like to get our shows ad-free, free of all the ads, then you should check out Club Twit. For $7 a month, it gets you every Twit show with no ads, an exclusive Twit Plus feed with extra content, including before and after the show stuff and some things we're working on. And what is quickly becoming the most popular perk, access to the members-only Discord server. You go to twit.tv/clubtwit to check it out. And for $7 a month, you'll get all those things. Just yesterday on Windows Weekly, Microsoft Build 2021 just took place or is taking place. And Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley were answering questions from our listeners from the Discord live on the air. So Leo was bringing them up on stage from the Discord and having them answer questions there, which was really fun. So yeah, we love getting to communicate with all of you and having you ask some questions and share your thoughts there. So if you want to join the fun, join the club, twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. We'll get you all of that. Matthew Castanelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where do they go to do so?
You can go to MatthewCastanelli.com, where I have been sharing more posts about all the streams that I've been doing. This week, I've been doing Notion streams and tapping into their new API, which is actually super fun and very fancy. And so I'm actually, if you're hearing this, doing a stream on Friday too that's all like open to everybody, so you can join in and learn along as I go. Super nerdy. It's very fun though. It's like I literally was like cheering during the stream because it's one of those that it was like pure programming out to a full website and everything. So it's cool. What about you?
You can find me at Micah Sargent on many of the social media networks, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active. Yeah, that's where you go to do all of that. I suppose that means it is time to say good afternoon to all of your smart assistants. Good afternoon, Siri.
Good afternoon and good night.
Hope you enjoyed that episode. If you would like to laugh while learning about how to take control and take advantage of all of the features that your iOS devices provide, then you should check out iOS Today, the show Rosemary Orchard, my co-host, and I, Micah Sargent, host every week on the Twit Network. It's all things Apple all the time.